Hey guys,
hello.
Welcome to a new little video series we're going to do just while we're preaching through the book of Revelation. When we're preparing our sermons, there's a whole load of stuff we'd like to include in the sermons on the Sunday, but we have to leave out because we want to keep them focused, keep them tight, keep them sharp. And occasionally there'll be an opportunity like this where we can share one of the insights or some of the things we were looking at that didn't make the final cut. So today, just wanted to ask Doug, who kicked the series off, you mentioned a little bit about the four major interpretive schools, the hermeneutical processes that groups have gone through over the years, the historist view, the preterist view, the idealist view, and the futurist view. And you suggested we were going to take this thing that you called the eclecticist's view, or the parallel view, or recapitulation. Parallel is probably the
most helpful and simple way of thinking that these things aren't happening one after the other, but in parallel. In fact, they're the same thing being seen from different views.
So, different camera angle on the same story, retold with perhaps some new light, some new detail, but it's the same thing every time. Okay, and that is something that's really helpful in terms of how we're going to read it in our home groups, and in the study guides that we're using support that as well. So that's a bit of continuity for us. But just wanted to talk about the historist view and the futurist view. There's a similarity in that they would suggest there's chronology. The whole thing is literally like one event after the other. It's a chronological thing. Why is it that we wouldn't agree with that? But firstly, why would they say that it was?
And actually thinking about it, also to an extent the preterist view, they all believe that they would all say that these happen in order. They just disagree on when and over what period of time. But they would all go to Revelation chapter 1 verse 19. And there, Jesus in his vision to John says, "Write therefore the things that you have seen, those that are, and those that are to take place after this." And there does seem to be a kind of a flow there. Things that have been, things that are, and things that are going to take place. And some have rested the whole kind of interpretation of Revelation on this verse to say that John is recording chronological events, things that have been, things that are happening now, and things that are going to happen in the future.
And so the dispute amongst those camps would be just when does that begin?
Yes,
Has it happened all, or is it all in the future? Or is it...
That's it. So for the preterist, it happened probably over a few years, maybe even a few years, but earlier. For the futurist, it's going to happen over a few years, seven or so years, and then obviously the millennium later. And for the historicist, it's happening now over 2,000 years. But they all see it as happening in the order you read it.
So trying to read Revelation like it is a set of proverbs or a history book. That these are statements, one thing after the other, and there's no indications that we should read it any other way. So that's the view that they would take. But we're not going to
take that view.
Just explain again why.
Well, like you've said, on Sunday we kind of gave some kind of hermeneutical reasons why, as in how we are meant to approach the Bible, and but there are actually some textual reasons why as well, because we want to be rooting everything in Scripture, and we want people to be sure that what we're saying we're getting in Scripture. So for example, in this chronological view, the things that are to take place now are kind of recorded in chapters 2 to 3, really over the letters to the churches. People are saying that's talking about kind of now. But even so for example, in the letters to the churches, we have consistent references to the future. So we have in chapter 2 verse 7, it talks about to the one who conquers, I will grant to eat of the tree of life, which is the paradise of God. That's clearly still referencing to the future. That's not happening now. I mean, to a degree, it is. We would say it is kind of happening now, and that happens in the commencement of that promise is happening now, but the fulfillment hasn't happened. And likewise, later on, where he talks about In chapter 3 verse 5, to the one who conquers will be clothed thus in white garments. Again, if we're taking it literally as they do, that isn't happening now. That's going to happen in the future, when we're before Christ in the new. So
without being too facetious, the one of the reasons we're thinking it's not chronological is because it isn't. It isn't.
Yeah.
Because you can't read it that way. And again, in chapter 12.
Chapter 12, where again, to the historicist and to the futurist, this is all yet future. It's going to happen. I'm just going to read verses 1 to 5 and just see if this kind of sounds like anything you know from elsewhere in Scripture. And a great sign appeared in heaven: a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, with 7 heads and 10 thorns, and on his heads 7 diadems. His tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven, and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days.
Okay, so to me that sounds an awful lot like it's like Genesis. We've got the story of where we have the ancient dragon at enmity with the woman and the seed, the offspring of the woman, the seed of the woman. So the promise from Genesis 3:15. You got then this picture of again a representation of the 12 tribes, the 12 stars, God's people,
the Old Testament church,
and then eventually we have the Son who is born, and he is born to rule over.
That's right.
So if that was all yet to happen. We're looking at another incarnation.
Whoops. We're looking at Jesus being born again.
And another fall of Satan from heaven.
Yes.
So
clearly it's referring to something which has already happened. And it is, in a sense, his rule is continuing to happen. And this has already happened. It's not yet to happen. So and there's other reasons which we will see as we read through them that these cycles seem to match up, these parallels. But there's 2 clear examples of, in a section which is meant to be about now, is clearly got references to the future, and the section which is meant to be all about future clearly has this reference to something which has already happened.
Cool. Thanks very much. It's really helpful. Grand.